Hello everybody and happy Pride Month. I'm Mads and this is my channel, Mads' Reading. Today I'm going to be talking about all my favorite queer books and there is a lot, so let's dive in. First up, I'm going to be diving into a couple adult queer contemporary romances, which I kind of have a small handful of, so I can't wait to talk about them. First off, I'm going to start with one of my all-time favorites, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I adore this book. I'm actually planning on rereading it next month, and this time I'm going to be annotating it because I've read this book like 3 times and every time is just absolutely amazing. And there's the movie coming out this August, which is actually coming out on my birthday, so happy birthday to me. They really did make it just for me. This book is about the son of the first female president and the prince falling in love. It kind of has a rivals to lovers, but the rivals is very one-sided. Like, Alex hates Henry for no reason other than the fact that I think he was just really attracted to him and he didn't know what to do about it. So he kind of made this whole rivalship up, and Henry's just going into gay panic around him, and we love him for that. It is just absolutely amazing. It follows them through developing their relationship and just them trying to figure out their positions in the high roles that they have in society, as well as trying to figure out ways to come out to the public, because it would be a lot more different if it was a girl and a guy, but because it's two guys, they run into a lot more problems than they probably should. So this book is just absolutely amazing. It has a bi main character and a gay main character. The gay main character, he has always known he's liked guys. Then we have the bisexual character who kind of goes through this whole crisis about himself and this whole sexuality crisis where he's finding out that, oh my gosh, guys are kind of hot. It's fun to read both of their stories with their own identities, and I love it about them. We also have a bisexual side character who is actually Alex's ex-girlfriend, so he kind of turns to her a little bit on this whole adventure that he's going on with himself. And those are all the confirmed queer characters in this book, although I have a feeling that Percy is not straight. Like, I kind of get Pan vibes from him. I want that to be confirmed. But this book is absolutely amazing. A 5-star read every single time I reread it. And if you haven't read it, I seriously suggest reading this book, even if it is just for Pride Month, because it is a great read. Next up, we have another amazing book by the icon Casey McQuiston, and that is One Last Stop. This book is just absolutely amazing. It follows this main girl, August, who's kind of grown up with not really any attachments to anybody because of this mission her mom has set upon herself that she has dragged her daughter into. And so then she shows up to New York for school and moves into this apartment full of people, and she has to kind of deal with making friends, which is something she never really has done before. And along with this, she meets a girl on the train who turns out to be a girl from the 1970s who is stuck on the train. So it's a fun contemporary with the sci-fi twist, which I always love, and I really need to read more of books like this because they're always so fun. For the queer lineup, we have so many amazing characters. In fact, I think almost every single character in this book is queer. We have August, who is bisexual, and Jane, who is lesbian, and neither of them really go through the whole trying to figure out their identities, and they already are confident in themselves and their identity, which is also just amazing to read. They don't really make it a big deal. Yes, it's a main part of the book, but it's not a big deal in the book. In the side characters, we have a transgender male who has an adorable girlfriend. In fact, I think the girlfriend might be queer too. I feel like she might be pan, but I could be wrong. I could be very wrong, so don't quote me on that. But I think she might be. It wouldn't surprise me if she was, but they are a very cute couple, and you kind of get a little bit of his story, but not too much because he is a side character. but I still love him and he is an icon. And then one of her other roommates is gay, and then they have a neighbor who is a gay drag queen, and we love him. He's just so iconic, and there is a lot of drag culture in this book as well, which I didn't know going into it, and so that was really fun to read because I've never really read anything like that, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. It was definitely a 5-star read for me. In fact, I have 2 copies. One of them was sent from Elsa, which is fully annotated, and another is one that I bought for myself a while ago. I think it was probably right around after I read Red, White, and Royal Blue, because Casey McQuiston just writes absolutely amazing stories, and I needed more. The chemistry, the banter, it's all there, it's all amazing, and I think this book should be as popular as Red, White, and Royal Blue. In fact, I'm really disappointed that it isn't. So if you want an amazing adult sapphic love story, I definitely recommend One Last Stop. Next up, we have another one of my favorites. I loved reading this book, and it's not really that talked about, which that's gotta change because it has amazing queer representation and mental health representation, and that is The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. This book follows one of the producers of this reality dating show and the contestant on the show. And the dating show is very much like The Bachelor. Like, you have this main guy who's having to go on all these dates and adventures with all these women, and it is fairy tale themed, which I thought was really fun and interesting. And so if you're a fan of The Bachelor but also want a amazing gay love story, which is also kind of an adventure, then I definitely recommend this book. We have 2 main characters, and they're both point of view characters. Dev is gay, and this is something that he's just kind of always known about himself. And then we have Charlie, who is demisexual. Now, I don't know for sure if it is like confirmed and discussed in the book, but I'm pretty sure it is confirmed by the author. And if it's not, there's a lot of hints, and how he acts just kind of shows this identity. And it's just really amazing. Their love story is just so cute, and there's an amazing balance of plot, characters, and angst, as well as amazing banter. It really is just a 5-star read. We also get a lot of mental health representation in this book. One of the main characters struggles with anxiety, and the other struggles with depression, and we get both of their stories with their struggles, and it's just amazing. More people need to read this book. And look at the cover. I love the cover. The first time I heard about this book, I just knew I needed to get it. And now, so should you. The last adult book I'm going to be diving into is a very popular one, so I don't know if I need to talk about it too much, but it is The Song of Achilles. This book might also be the first book I ever tabbed, and so the tabs are like sticking super far out, and so I should probably retab it, but that's a problem for future Mads. This is a retelling of the iconic myth about Achilles, and it is actually from Patroclus' point of view, and it follows them growing up and their love story through this entire war that they are shoved into, and it's just absolutely amazing. If you love historical fiction and you love Greek mythology and you want an amazing tragic love story, this book is definitely for you. Now, neither of the characters' identities are really ever confirmed in this book, but they are both queer, and they are in a queer relationship. They're so iconic, and this book is just so heartbreakingly beautiful. It's just absolutely amazing. Their identities aren't really that big of a deal to anybody. It's just kind of a casual thing in their life, but they also know that they can't really choose each other over everything else, and so there's also that aspect between duty and love, and it is really well hyped on just about any social media platform, so I'm sure you've heard about it, but I really did love this book, and I thought it was worth the hype. Now diving into the YA queer contemporaries, we have Heartstopper. Now, this is another really well-known book, but it is a graphic novel written by Alice Oseman. It follows this boy Charlie as he meets this guy Nick, and they develop a friendship which eventually turns into more, and it is absolutely adorable. The main character, Charlie, is a gay character, and this is something that he's always kind of known about himself. There's no identity finding with him, but we do get that aspect with his love interest, Nick Nelson. absolute king. Everybody deserves a boyfriend like Nick Nelson. He is bisexual and really goes through this process of figuring that out in this book, and he definitely has a lot of panics about this because he meets this guy and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with him, but wait, I thought I was straight. And so that is a really fun perspective to it, and I loved it. With the side characters, we have a transgender girl who is an absolute icon, and her love interest is their only straight friend, which we love for him. And then we have another character in this book who is confirmed to be demisexual, although that is not discussed in this book, but another one of Alice's books. And then we have two other side characters who are both lesbian and in a amazing relationship. They're so cute together and I love them, and one of them is just very chaotic and we love her for it. It is very well loved, and the next season of the show is coming out very soon and I can't wait to watch it. Definitely one of my favorites, and I could reread this book all the time. We also do get some mental health struggles in this series, not in the first book as much, but throughout the rest of the series, and I think it was just really well written and this novel couldn't have been done better. Also, I love the art in it because it is so cute and like so wholesome. It's just, I love Alice Oseman's art style and I wish I could have it. Our next Alice Oseman book is Solitaire, which I adored. It follows Charlie's big sister Tori, who starts finding these mysterious messages from Solitaire, and I really don't remember much of the plot in this book, but I do know that it was amazing, and honestly some crazy stuff happens in this book and it's kind of insane. Tori is very much kind of a loner. She just doesn't really know how to be around other people and she kind of struggles with that and her place throughout the book. We also have her new friend Michael Holden, who is kind of throwing himself into her life, and he is a real icon. For the queer representation, we have Tori, who's confirmed to be asexual, although I don't think it's really discussed in this book, and then her friend Michael, who is pansexual. And I love how it was mentioned too because it was pretty casual and there was no really big discussion about it, and it was just he's pansexual and it's just there. The last Alice Oseman book I'm going to be discussing is Radio Silence. This is another one that is just absolutely amazing. It follows this girl, Frances, who does fan art for this podcast, and then she meets the creator of the show and gets pulled into being the official artist for this show. In this book, there's also her struggles with academics because she spent her whole life in academics and then realizes, hey, maybe this isn't that big of a deal and I kind of want to do something else with my life. So that's a struggle that I definitely can relate to, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. Our main character, Frances, is bisexual and she doesn't really get a love story in this book, but I kind of liked that aspect of it because just because you are a queer character doesn't mean you have to go through a love story to validate that identity. She is bisexual and she is figuring everything out for herself and she doesn't need anybody else. Her new best friend is Aled, who's actually in the Heartstopper series, and so we really get this whole new side of him, which I just loved to see. He is confirmed to be demisexual and gets into a relationship with this guy he's kind of grown up with and has been best friends with for a really long time. And his love interest is gay. We also have a lesbian side character who isn't really brought in until about, I think maybe halfway through the book, but it is a prominent plot point and she really is just amazing. We also kind of get some struggles with mental health in this book as well. It's amazing, definitely 5-star. It deserves all the love in the world. This next book is one that's kind of been making its way around Twitter lately, and I honestly love that because I love this series, and that is The Foxhole Court. And that is The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic. This book is honestly amazing. This book follows our main character Neil, who is running from his father who is in the mafia. Instead of making choices that will help him hide from his father though, he decides to join the college league of his favorite sport, Exy, which is entirely made up, but it is a lot like lacrosse, but kind of more violent and inside. And I honestly would watch the heck out of it if it was a real sport. There's definitely a lot of chaos and violence in this series, and there's also a lot of things that can be triggering in this series, so please do check trigger warnings before diving into it. Our main character, Neil, is confirmed to be demisexual, although I don't think that's discussed in this book either. It has been confirmed by the author though, and he really is our demisexual icon. His love interest is gay, and their story throughout this book is just so good, and I love it. It really is one to make you scream. It is also heartbreaking too, but they really do protect each other with everything they have, and it's just amazing, and I love couples like that. We also have a side character who's gay and in an amazing relationship with a long-distance boyfriend, and then we have a whole bunch of other side characters that aren't confirmed to be queer, but everybody kind of headcanons them as one identity or another, like Allison and Renee, and Kevin and Jean and Jeremy. They all give off vibes, and I think we all kind of picked up on those vibes and ran with them. But this book really is just amazing. I loved reading the series, and I'm gonna reread it again soon because I need to retab them, and that is definitely not just an excuse to reread them. It definitely is. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check trigger warnings and check the book out. This next book is really one that isn't talked about that often, and I find that heartbreaking because I loved reading it, and that is If This Gets Out by Sophie Gonzalez and Cale Dietrich? Dietrich? I can't pronounce it. Don't be mad at me. But this book follows two members of a boy band who fall in love and kind of have to deal with their relationship in the band and the label who is trying to actively hide their relationship with each other. It definitely has a lot of angst, but it also has an amazing romance in it. One of the main characters is gay and the other is bisexual, and they are just such a great couple, and honestly what they go through in this book is pretty tragic, and I think it also reveals a lot about the music industry because this is something that has happened in the music industry plenty of times. So it is just a great story to read, and it's kind of eye-opening too. They are the only queer characters in this book, but the other side characters are still amazing and we love them. And honestly, I need more boy band romances or just music romances in general because I just think this book was so fun and I loved the whole performing aspect of it. I honestly just loved every aspect of it. So please read this book so more people can talk about it and love on it because it deserves all the love. This next book is kind of another contemporary with a sci-fi twist to it, and that is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. Honestly, Adam Silvera is an icon, and this is the first book of his that I read, and I just loved it so much. It follows these two guys who are both told that they have 24 hours to live by this company who actually tracks everybody's death dates and tells them 24 hours before they die so they can get the best of their last day. But after they're told that they have 24 hours to live, they kind of run into each other and they decide to live their last day with each other. And of course, what do but fall in love? And it is one of the most heartbreaking stories I've ever read. I definitely sobbed to this book. You can't blame me though. It's literally called They Both Die at the End. And I know the title turns it away for a lot of people because they're like, well, I know the ending. But that's also kind of the beauty of this book is that you know how it's gonna end, but yet you still want to read it and it's still an amazing story despite you already knowing the end from the beginning. One of the main characters is bisexual and he actually has an ex-girlfriend that plays a mild part in this book, along with this family that he's kind of built for himself. So you do get a side aspect of the found family trope. And then this other character who is gay and who definitely struggles with some anxiety and doesn't like really leaving the house, but he really opens up on his last day. And I love getting to see him change so much even in a 24-hour period, and it makes it a little bit more heartbreaking. But it's just absolutely amazing. I seriously recommend this book to everybody. Although I do understand if Adam Silvera's writing style isn't really for you, I will still push everybody to try it. Now I'm going to be diving into a couple of sci-fi and fantasy books with prominent queer characters because it's not just contemporary books that get to have it. This next one is actually another one by Adam Silvera, and that is Infinity Sun. I am so glad that I read this book because I just love the world that it's in. It actually is a urban fantasy set in New York, but there are people who have powers, and there very much is a superhero aspect to this book. These two brothers start out trying to film these superheroes in action and instead get dragged into the whole mess, and one of them, the main character Emil, ends up being the chosen one, but he doesn't want to be the chosen one, so we very much get a reluctant chosen one, which is a trope that I really do love and I don't get enough of. Our main character is gay, and we have a bisexual side character. Neither of them really go through a whole identity crisis at all. This is something that they've kind of always known about themselves and have accepted about themselves. And we even have the side character who is actually in a hetero relationship, which is also something that we need, because just because you're in a hetero relationship doesn't erase your identity, and we do need more book characters like that. So she's an icon, and so is Emil. He's just, I want to give him a hug. He does kind of get his love interest in this book, but I do say it is more prominent in the next book. He actually kind of gets himself into a love triangle in the next book, which I don't love. And so I'm very scared for the third book in this series, which hasn't come out yet. I just don't know who he's gonna choose, because both of them are really good. But I definitely have a preference, and one of them is definitely better than the other, and I think he should end up with him. I'm not going to reveal anything though, so if you want to talk about this book with me, please do. I would love to, because him and his love interest are just, I love them. I love them so much. This next book has actually become one of my all-time favorites, and it is Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas. Look how gorgeous this cover is. I was actually kind of worried about reading this at first, but all those worries went out the window the second I dove into it, because it is just amazing beginning to end. It follows this boy, Yadriel. He is in this culture that kind of stands the line between life and death and kind of protecting people from the dead, as well as helping the dead get to the other side. The Bruyas in this culture are the women who have powers of healing and kind of saving people from death, and the Brujos are the one who finds the dead and release them to the other side before they get too dangerous. Now, our main character, Yadriel, is a transgender guy, and so there is this major struggle of everybody not seeing him as a Brujo despite him being one. And he definitely goes through a lot of struggles with that. So this book follows him trying to prove his identity as a Brujo, and in this adventure, he finds this boy who is dead, and he makes it his mission to release him to the other side to prove himself to everybody. And of course, what does he do but fall in love with the ghost boy? Also, in this adventure, he actually stumbles upon an even bigger mystery, which turns out to be crazy and life-threatening, and it's just absolutely insane. His culture doesn't really respect him as much, and so you see him trying to prove himself a lot. As well as being transgender, he is also gay, and his love interest is gay too, and this is both something that they've always kind of known. And I actually love how Julian is about his identity, because he is so casual about it. He doesn't make it a big deal, and I think even Yadriel's kind of surprised at first, but Julian's just kind of like, yeah, so what? And so I just really love that aspect of it. And his cousin Maritza is just, I love her. She's such a fun character, and I love her role and everything, and I love her comments about everything, and she's just absolutely amazing. Maritza has my heart. So does Yadriel and Julian. They're just an amazing trio. I genuinely can't wait for the next book, because Aiden Thomas has announced the next book to this series, and it's actually going to be in Julian's perspective, which I am very much excited for. It's going to be amazing. This book also made me cry. I was sobbing because of this book, but the ending made it so much better, and it made my heart so happy. This next book is also another one of my favorites, and one that I will never stop recommending to people, and that is Gear Breakers by Zoe Hanamakuta. This book follows two girls. One of them is a gear breaker who has dedicated her life to taking down these giant mechas that are controlled by the government, and the other is a girl inside the mecha. And so it very much is a enemies to lovers book, and it's dystopian, and it's just absolutely stunning. Their love story throughout the book is just so good, and it is very much a slow burn. And the next book in this series is out, and I believe it is just a duology. I still haven't read the sequel, but I am very excited too, and I can't wait to get my hands on that book because it's gonna make me so happy when I can finally read that sequel. They are both point of view characters. One of them is lesbian and she is the Mecca. I love how casually she mentioned it because it was just like a one line, oh, she's always been interested in girls kind of thing, and it just kind of made you smile because like, oh, it's just so casual. And then the other one is bisexual and actually starts out the book in a relationship with a guy, which I was very upset with at first because I was like, wait, no, what do you mean you're in a relationship? Like, you're not supposed to be in a relationship right now. This isn't about him. But it's okay. It all turned out well. It just had me really freaked out at first. It threw me off so much, so be aware of that. I also believe one of the side characters is also queer. I'm not entirely sure, but it's okay if they're not because I love the side characters in this book anyways, and she very much has her own little found family within the Gearbreakers, and they are just iconic and just so cool. It's just absolutely amazing, and more people need to read this book. So if you want a sapphic dystopian, read this book. And it also has enemies to lovers, so. Next up we have another sapphic story, and that is The Midnight Girls by Alicia Jasinska. I think it's Jasinska? Don't judge me. This book is another enemies to lovers, following these two witches who are both serving these more prominent witches who are kind of a part of this big three. They all have their own area of nature and the world, and these two girls are kind of pit against each other all the time. They are both always after the same prince's heart because they need to bring the heart back to their masters. It is really a crazy premise, but it is an amazing story with so much culture. The culture in this book is just so good, and it is based off a real culture. Once again, they're after the same prince's heart, but this time they run into each other a lot more and kind of get to know each other a bit more and end up start working together a little bit, but also not at the same time. Like, they're both still enemies, but the lines really do blur a lot in this book. We have a lesbian main character and a bisexual main character, as well as another lesbian side character, a gay side character, and a bisexual side character. It's just really fun. I do love the side characters in this book. They are amazing, and the adventure they go on is so, it really just grabs you and brings you in and you can't get out of it. The only thing that I'm upset about is the fact that it is a standalone, because I really could read another book of this. The ending is insane, the beginning is insane, the entire thing is just insane and just amazing, and the romance in it is just so good. I always love a good romance in a fantasy setting. It's just amazing, and this book is not talked about enough. This next book is one that I've been talking about for so long now, ever since I finished the second book to the duology, and that is All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. This book is just absolutely amazing, and more people need to read it because it is like Hunger Games meets magic, and what's not to love about it? It also has an amazing enemies to lovers arc, and in the second book there are 2 enemies to lovers arcs. We follow about 4 main characters who are their family's champion for this blood tournament, and so they all have to go into this tournament, which lasts about 3 months, I believe, or until the last one is dead. The winner of this tournament gets all the high magic for that generation until the next tournament for the next generation. The premise of this book is just absolutely amazing. I'm so glad that I read it. This story just really leaves you with your jaw to the floor the entire time. It really just grabs you and pulls you in. We have a main character who is bisexual, and that is Gavin, and honestly, he probably is my favorite character in this book. He definitely goes through a lot and doesn't deserve anything that happens to him. He doesn't really get a love story in this book, but he does in the next book, so you kind of have to read this one to get to it, and I do think the second book is better than this one, but that's just me. It's not very prominent in this book, but he does openly identify with that label, and he deserves the world. Now I have one last one, and it is one that is well known and well loved, and that is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Some of my favorite characters in this book are the ones who are queer, including my icon, Nina Zenik. This book follows 6 main characters who have to go on a heist to break somebody out of a highly guarded prison in another country, and everything goes wrong. But they are told that if they do that, they get a lot of money. So of course, they're gonna do it because they all have stakes. So it is an amazing YA fantasy with an amazing heist, an amazing found family, and some absolutely stunning characters. We do have 3 confirmed queer characters in this book, and that is Jesper, Nina, and Wylan. Jesper and Wylan kind of hint at their relationship in this book. Jesper is bisexual and Wylan is gay, and they have the iconic line of "just girls, no, not just girls," which I am still really disappointed that we didn't get that in the show, because that truly is one of the most iconic lines in the whole book. And then we have our icon, and definitely my favorite character in this book, Nina Zenik, who is confirmed to be bisexual and who is in a enemies to lovers arc with this guy, Matthias Helvar, who is a straight king. This book is just honestly amazing, jaw-dropping, heart-stopping, everything. I love this book and I love this series. And of course, I'm sure most of you have heard about Six of Crows, but I just had to give you my little bits on the book because I absolutely adore it, and it does have some amazing queer representation and amazing stories in that book. Those are all the books that I have for you today. Thank you for sticking with me through the end of the episode, and I hope that you found a book that grabbed your attention. If you do end up reading one of these, please let me know. I would love to talk about it, or drop in the comments your favorite queer read that you have read and that you want everybody to read, because I know we all have them. So thank you again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you all next week. And of course, I hope you all have an amazing Pride Month.